Hello, it's Callum from Bump, and I'm here exploring the new Umbraco AI extension, which is a plugin that's been built by Umbraco, in fact, a series of plugins to integrate AI better into the CMS. I described it actually earlier as a toolkit for building with AI in Umbraco, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment, actually. There's aspects of this that I think people are overlooking. They're going to look at the glossy demo of, look, you can chat to an AI in the back office, but actually there's a lot more to this. So Umbraco's whole model here has been about building an AI integration that works without wedding yourselves to a certain model or even to a certain framework. They've built this based on open standards using the Microsoft Agent framework, which is a fantastic open source library that's evolved over the years from its origins as semantic kernel to now what is effectively known as Microsoft AI extensions. And it's a set of libraries and SDKs that allow you to integrate with an LLM of your choice in a sort of standardized way in .NET. It's fantastic. I've been working with it for years, and in fact, if we rewind maybe 3 years now, I started developing a Umbraco Copilot type product for the purpose of a bit of fun and to talk about at conferences. And throughout 2024, I was actually talking a number of conferences across the world, and I got to show off my Umbraco Copilot, then running on the beta of Umbraco 14, which was pretty exciting. And it's great to see some of those same concepts actually coming to life in this new Umbraco AI product too. So of course, I've got some things to say about it. I've got some views, got some opinions, and I've been having a play. You know what? Let's dive in, because if you go to umbraco.ai, you're actually taken to the GitHub page for this new tool, and it gives you an overview of exactly what is involved. I mentioned earlier, this is not just one plugin, this is a series of plugins. And I think people need to understand what each of these things actually does. So first and foremost, you have the Umbraco AI plugin. That is the main integration point that you can put onto any Umbraco 17 plus site. And it's the core set of integrations that allow you to talk to a large language model and to have those results exposed somewhere in Umbraco, in an Umbracoified context. It has some basic UI components in there. It has a bunch of abstractions around Microsoft's own framework so that it's Umbraco friendly. And this is the core ultimately of building with AI on Umbraco. But that doesn't mean just for building back office extensions. Actually, this is for building anything with AI in an Umbraco site. So if you were building an AI integration for a customer, the Umbraco AI extension actually allows you to use the Umbraco's abstractions to register and configure your models directly in the CMS and manage all of that natively. It's a really lovely experience that we'll have a look at in a second. On top of that, you've then got some added extras that you can have if you wish. The Umbraco AI prompt plugin allows you to actually have specific experiences surfaced to users at certain places in the CMS. For example, against a property, you can have an action that says, go regenerate this with AI or go do something with AI. And the prompt plugin, optional extra you can install, allows you to define where those are. And then finally, on top of that, you've got these providers, let's call them providers. So OpenAI, Anthropic, Amazon, Google, and also Microsoft AI Foundry as all open source providers that allow Umbraco's AI extensions to talk to your model of choice. They're not wedding you into a specific platform, which is, really true and dear to the Umbraco ethos, I think. You can choose your own AI LLM of your choice, bring it and use that in your sites as you wish. So this is quite a different change from some other companies, some other CMS products that are actively building their own AI platforms that you have to connect to. This is a bring your own model type approach, but giving you all of the integration points to make it work well in the CMS. The final part that's, I think, the bit that people will be most interested in is the new Umbraco AI agent. And the idea of that is to create a series of tools, which is a feature of large language models. They can do tool calling and effectively function calling and execute code on your behalf. And the AI agent is a series of tools that let you do tasks directly in the CMS for things like querying the content that exists. And then the agent Copilot is a UI on top of that actually brings a chat type interface directly into the CMS that you can use. I mentioned earlier I've been building a similar thing over the years, and you can see here this NDC Copenhagen talk from 2024, where I'm effectively showcasing exactly the same thing. You have a chat window that you can summon from within the CMS. It gets registered as a registered as a side panel. There's a chat window in there. You can start chatting. You get your response back from the AI, and away you go. I'm not suggesting I invented this. This is very much a standard pattern for using large language models now. And the HQ team have taken this and gone a few steps further by building a framework around it and doing some really exciting things. They've also gone, you can do content querying. It's all context based, which is similar things I was saying at the time. Really important if you're using an LLM inside the CMS, it has to know what you're looking at and what you're talking at. So talking about. And Umbraco can do that by creating the extension points they need. Crucially, we as developers can also build upon those extension points now and create our own tools and our own plugins that integrate into this chat, which is just amazing to see. So we've got a well-supported, very well-featured end-to-end Umbraco AI integration service plugin now. If you I've been having a bit of a play with the new AI extensions, and I'll admit it's not been the most straightforward, but it only came out yesterday. There's been a few niggles, but that's to be expected. I have managed to get it up and running and got a demo working fairly easily though, so you should take that as a positive sign to go and give this a go. Over here, I've got an Umbraco 17.1 site installed, the latest version of Umbraco 17, and I've gone ahead and installed Pulseal's Clean Starter Kit as well. If you take an existing Umbraco 17 site, you're all good to install the AI extensions. But if you take a brand new clean install and try and install AI extensions from the get-go, it doesn't seem to work. It causes an error or something. But here we are. We've got a default Umbraco 17 site with a starter kit, and I've gone into Visual Studio and I've actually installed the Umbraco.ai. That's the core library extension. This is all the building blocks that I need in order to be able to configure and use AI tools in the CMS. Then I need to choose a provider, and the provider is where it gets a little bit interesting. Not because you'll be wedded to that and you'll regret that decision later. You can choose any of the available providers out of the box, but because this is where you might need to think about what your use case is and where the different services actually fit in. If you've got an existing ChatGPT subscription, you can take your existing GPT subscription and the API key they give you and put that into Umbraco, and it should just work. Similar for Google Gemini and for Claude, etc. But if you're wanting to deploy this into an organization, into a team, you might actually want a bit more granular control. So that's where Microsoft's AI Foundry comes in, and that's the one I've chosen today for this reason. AI Foundry is a fantastic resource that's created by Microsoft. If you go to ai.azure.com, you go to a very nice portal where you can create a new project, give it a name, choose the region you want it deployed in, and then browse from a library of nearly 12,000 different models that are available for you to test and to deploy into Azure. You pay typical Azure consumption-based pricing. So yeah, you can see here we've got all of the OpenAI models. We've got Grok, we've got Claude, a bunch of Microsoft proprietary ones, DeepSeek, and also things like the Hugging Face library is also all in here. So yeah, a pretty rich set of models available, and that means you can use any of them. You can pick and choose and change this out later. So if you use AI Foundry and set that up once, actually it's quite easy to swap out for another model in Umbraco a bit later. For now, I've just gone ahead and deployed the GPT-4o Mini and the GPT 5.2 chat models to my AI Foundry. And then when we go back to our CMS, now I've installed the plugin, we've go to the connectors section, and inside connectors, we can create one of the connectors we have installed. So I've got AI Foundry, you go, you fill in your credentials, and away you go. After that, it's now a case of starting to configure Umbraco's AI extension. You'll see in the settings section, we have this extensive list of different options that we can now set up ourselves. They have this concept of profiles, and profiles matches a capability with a model and with a set of configuration. So in this case, I've created a GPT-4o mini config. I've tied it to my connection that I've created, my AI Foundry, and I've chosen from one of the many, many available models that exists. You can configure things like temperature, which is the randomness that the model might be able to generate. You can also implement rules around how many tokens they can use and apply something called a context. Context gives additional information or points the LLM to additional resources and instructions about how it might want to behave. Things like brand tone of voice, or things like a text document that says, here's a bunch of additional information you always need to know every time you're going to process a request. So it's actually that easy to get up and running. And thereafter, you have a way of configuring AI connections in your Umbraco solution. So if you wanted to programmatically go and consume one of these models, you don't have to use any other APIs. Umbraco has now got an abstraction that lets you talk to the LLM. They have an AI chat service that you can use and effectively communicate back and forth with those LLMs. That's pretty cool. But it goes one step further because I mentioned earlier they have this prompts plugin, and prompts allow you to take an existing connection, an existing profile, and apply that to a very specific area of the CMS if you wish. In my case here, I've configured a lorem ipsum generator, and I've said, I want you to use the GPT-4o mini model, I want you to follow these contexts I've created, and here's an instruction. When you do that, it says, this is the task I want you to do. This is what the model is effectively going to be prompted to go and create. And then you can map it to different conditions to say, when this condition is true, I want you to appear. In this case, I've set it to, on any TipTap property editor, I would like this prompt to show up. But you could restrict this down to a certain property or even a certain content type and have exclude rules as well. So this will present a button to users in the CMS that they can use to go and actually generate and generate some text, for example, in this case. Let's see that one in action. So if we go back to content and we jump to blog, I have a blog here about join the Umbraco community on Mastodon, and you'll see there's a rich text field. If we go to the three dots, we can click generate lorem ipsum, and it will now go off to the LLM and get the LLM to generate some lorem ipsum text. Here's some lorem ipsum text, fantastic. We can click insert, and yeah, I think that's a bit broken right now. It doesn't quite seem to work. Similarly, I found that if you try and do this on a RTE inside a block list, as Paul Seal's starter kit does use here, this just simply doesn't work either. But it's early days. That's still exciting. It's a nice, very native Umbraco feeling integration, and I didn't have to write any code to do it. It's all configured directly in the CMS. That's pretty sweet. But things go one step further. We have this idea of agents, which is the new plugin that you can install on top that brings a chat interface to the CMS and allows you to start talking to your LLM directly through Umbraco. You install the agents plugin and in my case, the agents Copilot plugin as well, which brings this UI together. And you can start to configure this agent should talk to this profile, it should use this tone of voice, and here's a base prompt, etc. Here's the scopes that I want it to look at, for example. So what that's done is when I go to the content section, I now have a little chat bubble that appears at the top, and I click it, and much like that demo I showed you earlier, it's got a pop-up that slides out, and it's a chat interface. The interface knows the context you're in, it knows the piece of content you're looking at or the section you're in, and so you can ask questions about that specific piece of content. But yeah, we can do other things like say, who are you? And it will say, hi, I'm Umbraco Pilot, because I told it to say that in my prompt configuration, and yeah, how can I assist you? So this is a native, very friendly AI chatbot directly in the CMS. That's pretty sweet. We can go one step further though. Umbraco has built a bunch of things called tools that allow different capabilities to this LLM to go and query content and do those sorts of things. Now they've built a very basic set of tools, admittedly, for this first version. Things like finding content and answering questions about piece of content, also extracting text from a URL so that it can be pasted into a field, for example. That's all well and good, but it would be nice if we could build our own, and we can because this is based on a nice open standard and it's all friendly. So if we go to my Visual Studio instance here, I've created a class called Weather Forecast Tool. This is just a standard C# class, and it extends the AI tool base function. That's an abstract class that requires I implement these two methods. A description, this is a natural language description of the behavior of this tool, and some execute functionality that should return a result. In my case, I'm just returning sunshine and unicorns as the result. So whenever I ask the LLM in Umbraco to tell me the weather forecast for the office, I want it to tell me the weather forecast is sunshine and unicorns. You decorate it with this AI tool uh, attribute, and the attribute plus the description are essentially what the LLM will use to determine whether this tool should be executed or not. You give it a friendly name. I strongly recommend this, underscore, lowercase underscore convention, because LLMs are much better at understanding things like Python, and this is the typical syntax they use for a function name. You can give this whatever name you want, but generally I found better accuracy by doing this, and you give it a friendly name too. So it will use the natural language given here to match that against a query and determine, should I execute that tool or not? When we go to the CMS, we can ask now, what is the weather in the office? And it's decided there to call the tool, and you can see the weather in the office is sunshine and unicorns. That's not something an LLM would typically know, but it's something that I've been able to program. And so with only a few lines of code, I'm able to start integrating my own functionality and behavior into the CMS. Pretty cool. This is also registered in the DI container, so I can inject any services that I want, internal classes that you've got, or Umbraco's own iContent service, for example, to go and perform actions that I choose to do directly in here too. So this is really flexible and very .NET native, very Umbraco native, things that people would be used to using. Essentially, this is as far as I got building my own Copilot as well back in the day. And one of the big barriers that I came up against was permissions. Permissions is a big challenge. And I'm interested to see how Umbraco is going to handle that. So far, the tools that they have delivered are all read-only actions. They've got a tool that goes and searches for content using the external examine index, which I found a bit weird that it's using the external index, but yeah, they have a tool that does that. They have a tool that goes and gets content from a URL. They have a tool that goes and finds media, but nothing that actually mutates content. And this is where things become interesting, because Umbraco's permissions model is implemented mostly or largely in their API layer, not in their service layer. Some of the newer services do have permissions baked into the service itself, but mostly it's in the API layer. So calling the service directly is a way of bypassing those permissions. And in this case, if you were to introduce a tool that did that and called a service, you potentially have some challenges on your hand. So you have to roll your own execution permissions and policies there to work that out. I'm sure it's something Umbraco will come up with a good solution for, but for now, I can't see there is one, and it's not something I was ever able to find a good solution for either. So that will be interesting. The other concern I've got with this setup is actually the way that the connections are created inside inside Umbraco AI. So the connections are effectively a global set of configuration that say this is all of the different available this is my set of API keys and how you talk to an LLM. But that's shared for all users. There's no way of having a user level AI connection as far as I can see. So that means you could potentially quite quickly burn through credits, tokens on your AI API, which could either cost a lot or you'll just run out of credits. If you've got multiple users all trying to do chat things with Umbraco simultaneously. So it's another thing I'd probably like Umbraco to do something about. There's a few other things as well that I think would make this a little bit more enterprise ready or a customer ready, which is for now all of these configurations are stored in the database, and that's great, but it would be cool if we could split that database out and we could scale that independently and handle our own security of that database separately to the main Umbraco content. It has things like request logs in there, which could potentially include, some sensitive data. It has other forms of configuration like the API keys that you might want to try and keep somewhat secret. So a separate DB is probably a helpful idea. But other than that, this is really cool, and it took maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes for me to get something up and running, having already got the AI Foundry set up and having my models deployed there. If you've already got an API key, I'm sure it'll be just as quick, if not quicker. To me, this unlocks a whole bunch of potential, both as a developer building integrations for our clients. We can install this, we can start to restrict the experience down to only talk to certain contexts or only be exposed in certain ways. It's not an all-encompassing AI, it's flexible. We can build our own tools that clients can start using and actually do meaningful things for that customer that may not be, suitable for generic use. And yeah, we can start building our own AI experiences in the CMS as well, based on these things, or not in the CMS, or for our clients on their own sites, but using the AI abstractions Umbraco provides in order to actually manage those. Pretty cool. I will share a couple of links down below for key resources. That's the AI Foundry, some documentation for getting started, and also a link to my previous talk on semantic kernel, because all of the concepts in the code that I shared previously actually still apply. That's it.